hear me okay? Fine. I don't want to blow your eardrums out, so. I realize we're just a little bit past 4 o'clock. I just want to make sure we give ample time for everyone to get here. We do have 2 presentations today, so believe it or not, my goal is to get you out of here as quickly as I can, and then also leave you time for questions at the end. So if you're here, it's because you have a son or daughter, or sons and daughters, or one combination of the other, or any multiples. And the fact is, this is about the Chromebook deployment that the district is doing. So if you're not here for that reason, you're welcome to stay, but I also would welcome to excuse you if you want, because I'm not saying it's going to be an exhilarating presentation, but I'm going to certainly do my best. So why don't I start off with, who am I? My name is Tony Spence. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the Muskego, Norway School District. I've been in the district for just over a year now, so tons of experience, right? Actually, I have quite a bit of background. I was a teacher formerly, also a technology and IT manager and director. So this isn't my first stop. We've done quite a bit in the first year. If you're aware of it, we are deploying Chromebooks to 5th through 12th grade students. And we're in our second year of this process, which is a staggered process. So we're actually deploying to 5th through 7th grade and 9th through 11th grade. So our 8th graders and our seniors are feeling a little bit left out. That's my family. My daughter's a little low in her hair. It's like Pleasantville. She's the naughty one. And so I think we're going to keep it going. So, and at the end of the day, you know, I always keep my own kids in mind about what we're doing here. It's a purposeful process. We're not just doing this because we thought it was a good idea. Actually, we have very specific reasons why we're doing the Chromebook 1-to-1. Before I get into that, I'm going to talk to you about the spectrum of chaos. Boy, that sounds interesting, right? This is not about some evil character in DC Comics. And it's not something you'll Google and find and go, oh yeah, spectrum of chaos. It's this well-researched theory. This is what Tony Spence thought of our first year of deploying Chromebooks. It was chaos. We started on the far left side in mass chaos. Not a great place to be, but you have to go through those steps. There was a learning curve to almost anything, and this was certainly no alternative to that. So organized chaos was the beginning. If we are determining that to be perfect means success, then we'll never do anything. Because quite honestly, our goal isn't perfection. Our goal is success. And we can hang out in this far right side called organized chaos. And a lot of what we do is living in organized chaos. And you might think, well, we're just not that organized. Things change rapidly. As soon as we reach a finite peak, we feel like we've really got it. Everything seems to change. And that's not a bad thing, but it's also difficult to keep up with. So if our goal is to always be on top, by sitting still and saying we're here, then we're never on top. Perfection, although great and would be awesome, is not our main goal. Some of our goals are, number 1, implementation of Google Apps for education. Now, you've probably used Google before to do a search. Some of you might even have a Gmail account. You might have even used some of the Google tools. I want to clarify something very important about Google. Some of you are thinking, I've read quite a bit about Google, and they do take that information and advertise to it, and then I get stuff in the mail about buying hairbrushes and toothbrushes. But in this case, we have our education accounts. We are the administrators of that. We have a separate agreement with Google, and they do not have access to that data. So if a son or daughter is typing anything in a Google Doc, it's not something that Google then takes and uses for their purposes. Larry and Sergey, the co-creators of Google, when they were in PhD student coursework, they created Google. And they always knew that they were going to keep a version of it, the education side, free. So we are at that benefit. We're certainly not alone, whether it be in higher ed or K-12 institutions. The next step, what I just talked a little bit about before, we're trying to roll this out all the way through 12th grade. The state of Maine had a 1-to-1 technology rollout for all 7th grade students in 2000. That there are about 187,000 students in the entire state of Maine. So there were about 15,000 students that they rolled out those devices to. And that was 14 to 15 years ago. So if we start to think that this is this really big initiative that, wow, we're taking huge leaps and bounds, we're not. But it's important that you're here to hear about some of our initial steps. That's the real value of this, because this is new to us. And this is valuable to us. And that's why you're sitting down listening to me. And again, apologize if I put you to sleep. I've been told that I have that voice that hums like the fan that puts you to sleep at night, so if you doze off, I'm not going to be offended at you. We have a continued emphasis on upgrading our network. You've asked, how do you want to put all these devices on your network? Well, wireless has always been an issue, right? You got to make sure that you have wireless coverage. That's how these devices operate. There's no way to plug in a cable, so they need wireless internet. So we've added over 40 access points to the network this year, and we have over 200 in the district. So it's a healthy amount. We've also increased our bandwidth. 2012-13, we had 100 megabytes for the district. You can get 100 megabytes at your house. And it's really not that expensive. We pay a lot more for it here. I guess we're a public entity, they think we have more money. Unfortunately, if you can get more access to the entire district, it doesn't say a lot about our access, does it? So we just read an article in the newspaper. Siren, Wisconsin, and Madeline Island, they have gig fiber access. What does that mean? 1,000 megabytes that's available to households. It means you can have 1,000 megabytes of internet coming right into your house. They're saying it's really popular for tourists because in some cases they're getting internet faster than if they were at home or even in the office. Maybe not a bad way to vacation. I know in Siren they have water skipping championships. Anyway, the fact is, this is not going away. The demand for internet is going up. And you can see in 14-15 where capacity needs to be 1,000 megabytes, otherwise known as 1 gig. We're not there yet, but we have the capacity to do it. We actually can grow in 200 megabyte increments and only pay for what we need. So it doesn't have to be oh, we need to get there right away and not use it. In fact, the highest use of integration of basically our bandwidth has been about 300 megabytes. That was our peak. Our typical use is only about 250 meg, but we are adding over 2,500 devices to the district this year. So you can imagine the demand will go up. So we're prepared for it. Technology professional development. I will openly admit that if you ask me to nail 2 boards together, I can figure it out eventually. If someone gave me all of the best tools that were out there, I could do it. But it isn't because I would do it well. I need training. Some people are more intuitive at that. I understand that. But we need training how to use these tools. Training for the staff, training for the students. And it needs to be rolled out. This summer, we offered 3 different versions of professional development for staff. One was a face-to-face. You come into a room, you sit down, you spend 4 hours or 8 hours, and you learn just like the students do. The other was an online version. There's actually an online module. The reason that's important, we're going to be offering it to parents. So in October, you're actually going to have a chance to come in and experience the online training modules, and you'll have the opportunity to use it to learn on your own. Yes, that sounds pretty good. I know you're excited about learning. So the thing was, we had offered these last year, and they were very popular for some of the parents saying, hey, I want to be able to support what my son or daughter is doing. I want to know more about it. And by the way, you don't have to wait for October. We pulled some of these resources together for you already. I'll share that in a little bit. But just keep in mind, we've done these trainings for our staff. We also want to offer that to our families. One last version of training, we have what's called the Google Hangout. 1983, I went to Disney World and Epcot Center. And I did this thing called Streets of the Future. It was like this train car ride. And we all were pressed up against the glass because we saw video conferencing. And we thought how powerful that would be. Wow! Imagine broadcasting face to other people. It was almost inconceivable. And now we have it and it's free and we never use it. With a few exceptions. We actually do use it in our district. We actually have what's called Tech Tuesdays, where we could have teachers connecting with other teachers talking about a subject. We could have 200 people at once. We didn't have that at once. But we could have that in new ones, all connecting to one common hangout. Faces, screens, ideas, conversations, voices. So you didn't have to leave your home. You could be in Siren or Madeline Island, and you could connect to it. You wouldn't have to be here in person. Another great way to extend the learning. And that'll be another option for kids as well. The parent site, I'm going to come back to it at the end just because there are a few things that I don't want to skip over. It's organized by tabs. It's very straightforward. You want to learn about how to print at home. You want to learn about how I can get into Google Docs, how do I do Google Calendar. It's all going to be there. I want to make sure I don't miss any of my notes. One of the conversations we typically get, Chromebook insurance, should we take this out? Here's what I'm going to tell you. We have stats from the district that tell us exactly the number of devices that broke, and why, and how much they were to repair, and how fast we turn them around. We went with an outside insurance company called Worth Avenue. They did a nice job. But it took a little longer because we're sending the devices out. A lot of broken screens. It happens. We found we could replace the screens in about 10 minutes. And we can buy the screens for about $55. Sometimes the price fluctuates just a little bit based on the vendor. So what I'm going to tell you is the cost of the device is $215. The cost of the replacement screen, $55. We don't upcharge it. Whatever we pay for it, that's what you pay for it. Some of the brakes are like bezels. That the part that goes around the screen, those are about $15. And those will happen. Some people will relate to what I had when I was a kid, which was I had a retainer that I lost all the time and I broke it and I had to go dumpster diving because I threw it away on my lunch tray, and my parents still gave me my retainer back, which I guess had a few straight teeth I couldn't afford. But at the end of the day, the insurance is completely elective. It is $25 per school year, and there are deductibles. We did do some research, and we looked at cell phone insurance. And we found that the cell phone insurance coverages were between $395 and $495 per month. And they had about a $50 to $100 deductible, depending upon the company. So we thought our deductibles of $15, $20, and $25. Each occurrence is about $5 more. It was less than that. So that is the structure of the insurance. It is a peace of mind for some. It is, I don't need it for others. You may have already paid for it. You may have not paid for it and you want it. We can do that. You may have decided, no, I don't want it, and we can give you your money back. The fact is, it's your choice. We have 2 weeks until the start of the school year to make the final decision. So if you're not sure about it right now, that's fine. That 2-week window will open, and it will eventually close. It's not because we will say, well, too late, but eventually we have to close that window, as you would expect. So the insurance, again, device is $215. Replacement screen's about $55. Insurance is $25 per month, for the year. And the deductible is $15, $20, $25. I have paperwork here. If anybody needs that, didn't get a chance to sign up. And I also have the handbook here, because the number one reason you're here is I need you to be able to read the handbook. It's 11 pages, down from 25. So it's a pretty good step in the right direction. We want you to be able to view it, see it, and sign the document with mom and dad, mom or dad, whomever, and son or daughter, or sons and daughters, depending on who you have in your family. And then turn it in on the first day of school. Now, some of you may have already turned it in, and that's fine. If you're not sure, you can take it with you, because I've made enough copies for everybody. They're actually front and back. One side is the insurance, the other side is the handbook page. On the bottom of that page is something else that's very important. It's called a waiver. Waiver, that sounds interesting. The fact is you have a choice. You have multiple choices. But the device itself, you do not have to take. We purchased enough devices for every single student this year. 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. And if you decide you would like to supply your own device for your child to use, to bring to school instead of the Chromebook, you have the right to waive what we have. We only ask one thing, and that is that you do supply one device, an alternative. we have a goal. The goal is that every classroom has 100% access. So when a teacher assigns something, they know that all students have the exact same access. Because if there's 29 students out of 30 that do, and one that doesn't, it makes it very difficult to teach. So we're not saying you have to take our device. But we did try to choose a device that works well for us. And by the way, Google Apps for Education, being the center of what we do, will run on a PC, will run on a Mac, will run on an iPad. So if you decide you want something alternative, we are not going to hold you to the Chromebook. We found it to be a lightweight device. The battery life definitely lasts the entire day, which is a crucial component. We bought cases, so every student not only gets the Chromebook, but they also get a case. And it fits nicely right in the case. They never have to take it out of the case. There's ventilation, and there's holes for all the ports for plugging and charging. So at the end of the day, it never has to be taken out, which is a really nice feature. They're durable cases, because we know we're going to get some drops. So once again, insurance, elective. Chromebook, elective. We just ask that you supply another device in place of it. And if you're unsure, you can come and talk to me about it more either after this. We're thinking a little bit about that. What would we get? I can give you some recommendations. Hamburger helping thing makes you hungry. I know, I'm trying to get you out of here, I promise. I'm going to do as best I can. There was a thing called the white glove process. We purchased all these devices from a distributor called CWG. The G stands for government. We are in part a government entity. And we're not head over heels for CWG, that's not the point. The fact is, they allowed us the opportunity to say, when these devices come to your door, they'll turn on, and you can use them immediately. They'll know your network, they'll know your Google control panel, they'll be all set up for you. Okay, well that wasn't bad, but they charged us $12 per device. That was last year. Well, if we ordered 2,100 devices, it's $25,200, give or take. That's what we saved by having staff. We had also students, student council, students who needed service hours come in. We had over 18 people work on this. In a day and a half, we processed 2,100 Chromebooks. And I say we being not me, them. Taking them out, tagging them, checking them in, joining to the domain, putting them back in the boxes, sorting them by each school, and then delivering. A very impressive process. And the saving goes back into the program. So again, we learn a lot of opportunity for growth. We work with Samsung because that's the type of device we have. And we do the self-maintainer program, which means we can enable our students, we can enable staff to do repairs. And we can get quality equipment and replacement equipment directly from them, which means we don't void the warranty, because there's a 1-year warranty on these. As soon as we do any replacement or take anything off, it voids the warranty. But because we work with Samsung, we're saying, we'll train you. And then you'll know how to do this. And we won't void your warranty. And it'll actually cost less money. So this is a great opportunity for us to work with the supplier directly. What's that saying if you can't read it? It says, the field light is on, the field light is on, we're all going to die. And then it says, oh wait, that's just the intercom. So we've made some interpretations on the data that we have. Sometimes we read it right, sometimes we don't. In not so many words, we found out that if we let all students use whatever apps they want, we'll have students putting 100 apps on their computer. Well, you can imagine what happens when you have a Chromebook with 100 apps on it. It starts to really go, and then they wonder why. So what's going to happen for all devices in middle schools? We're going to wipe them clean. The teachers are going to pick the apps that are most useful, and that's what's going to go on there. And yes, there's room for student input, but ultimately, we learned a lot from last year. And it was, if we open it wide open, it will go wide open. One of the questions that someone asked was, by the way, you all had that area on your Google form to say, did you have any questions? So I read through all those, and I have all of those listed. My son likes Minecraft. Is that going to be on there? I hope not, and I quote. So we are not going to allow whatever app can be added at the discretion of the student. We're going to be giving the teachers that choice. And I realize there's some benefits and and some drawbacks to that, but there certainly are more benefits, and that is the device will run faster, the use will be more school appropriate, and of course it will be faster overall. If we are to think about apps, we're also thinking about filtration. This says, looks like your whole dinosaur system is white. You really should have invested in some anti-meteor protection. How do you feel about upgrading to mammal OS X? Things happen. But these devices do not require virus protection. They don't need a huge drive to be plugged into the side to update them to the next operating system. They update on their own. So they always stay up to date. They're not bogged down by viruses. There's not spam malware like we have on our devices. And so they're less susceptible to problems, which is nice. We streamline it. The Library Media Center has a Genius Bar, late to noon, and Bay Lane. And we have some very important positions that were added this year. We have tech support aides at each building. And those tech support aides are going to be our center point for support. Because another major question that came up over and over again, where do our kids go for help when there's a problem? Well, the teachers are your front line within the classroom. But when there's an issue, a technical issue, or there's assistance or something is broken, we're going to be going to our tech support aides as our key triage point. So, thankfully, we happen to have one of those people in our room. That is Michelle. Thank you. Very excited to have these people in these positions, because before that, we had people from a variety of locations, and yes, we can help assist with this process, but there was never one single person to do it. So now that we have 1,200 more devices going into the middle schools, this is going to be a key component of what we do. So it's a big step. And our Library Media Center with the Genius Bar, if everyone can recognize, if you've ever been to an Apple store, they have the Genius Bars. So it sounds like I'm swiping their terminology, and I guess I am, so I hope I don't get sued. But ultimately, that is the point where you go for support. And they'll recognize that as their main idea. So at late to noon, it's in the library, and at Bay Lane, it's in the Innovation Center, which is just off the side of the building. Some of you asked, why are we doing this? It seems like a lot of investment. I'm not sure I believe in it. And those are really good questions. And I'm not going to be able to answer every single one of those questions in a short period of time that we have, but what I can tell you is this. If you look on my right, your left, my right, there's a shoe made out of wood. Actually, it's the last of the shoe. The cobbler would then make your shoe out of leather based on that carving. And then you would have your shoes. Well, it wasn't until after the Civil War that people started wearing a left and a right shoe. It was long after the Civil War. It was invented, but it wasn't even mainstream. So imagine having two shoes identical, no left or right. And imagine that being appropriate right now. I'm assuming not many of you would want to interchange that. On the other side, we have Nike. Nike ID. Very expensive. Boy, shoes got really expensive, didn't they? I tried to do some of these personalizations for my son for football, and it was like $160 before I could even blink an eye. But at the end of the day, look at all the options we have. Shoelaces, what the swoosh looks like, what color the bottom is. Oh, that's not enough, I need more. I need to put my initials on the back so I remember it's my shoes. No, we're going to know. They're your shoes. Personalization. We're looking at personalized learning. We have two examples of that in middle school. They're called Project I. They're basically project-based, personalized learning. Schools within schools. And we're not trying to make every single classroom that way. But what we are doing is keeping our students as the center of the learning universe. It used to be the teacher, and again I was one, was the center of the information universe. I have the information, I relay it to you. But that's passive learning. We're looking for active learning. Why would I wait if I have a burning question? Am I able to communicate and find information in between? Can that learning extend even after I leave the classroom? Do I have to wait until tomorrow when we discuss it again to find out more information about it? The answer is no. Personalized learning is something that we're doing with CESA 1. CESA 1 is based out of Milwaukee. There are a lot of districts doing it. This is basically started in 2010. You see in the middle, there are three purple. I'll read those to you. It says learner profiles, customized learning paths. and then also proficiency-based progress. Like I said, we're trying to personalize the learning so it's appropriate for you. When you filled out your Google form, I asked for your questions so that I didn't just ramble all day long about what I thought you should know. I wanted to know what you wanted to know. So this, basically, the presentation is around what you're interested in, not just what I'm interested in telling you. Peter Norvig is the head of research and design for Google. It seems like all I'm telling you about is Google these days, but you have to know what he did. He taught a class to 100,000 people all at once. It was an online class. He taught it at Cal Berkeley. It was for free. Anybody could take it. It didn't cost anything. It was on artificial intelligence. It sounds like, well, does that mean I'm not fake smart? Is that what? No. Artificial intelligence, if you've ever heard of Google's car that drives itself, that's artificial intelligence. A computer that almost acts like a human. In this case, he taught a class of 100,000 people on artificial intelligence. 80,000 finished the class. And he interviewed one of his students, and his students basically said, it was like I was sitting at a restaurant with a really smart friend, talking about something I didn't know, but was about to learn. That was the response of taking a class with 100,000 other people. Sounds pretty personalized, doesn't it? Even though we have 100,000 people. The other thing is, if 80,000 people finished the class, he felt the real reason why that happened wasn't because of him. It's because there were like 15 peer-created sites that he had nothing to do with. People were branching off on their own, making their own peer sites to keep content, information, and notes to help each other out. Peers. And peer learning is a huge part of personalized learning and what we're trying to do. I have to tell you this. No matter how much technology I could pump into a classroom, which I know from my position it seems like that's all I'm worried about, really not. Nothing will replace quality teaching and quality curriculum. Curriculum is the core of what we do. The teachers are the delivery model for that curriculum, and technology is just a tool. That's all it is. It's really no different than a pencil, a pen, a calculator. All of these are forms of technology, like it or not. Remember when calculators were considered to be, our kids are never going to be able to do math because now they have calculators. I think we feel pretty comfortable that even though they can't change that anymore, right, they still can do math. I talked about getting fiber internet to places like Siren, Wisconsin. It's a small community. That's pretty neat that they're getting it there. AT&T, Google, they're installing fiber. TDS Metrocom, they were just in my backyard yesterday installing fiber. Why? Because the speed of sound is 740 miles per hour. Not bad. The speed of light, that's the speed information can travel through a fiber optic cable, is 186,000 miles per second every day. 186,000 miles per second. So you can imagine how far light is. The distance light travels in 1 year. That's the type of technology we're building. That type of access. So it's certainly not going away. It's only going to get more and more. And you saw our infrastructure needs and our bandwidth needs constantly growing. I'm almost done here. I'm going to get to my last slide. I'm going to answer some of the questions that I was asked. I'm going to show you the parent website. I'm going to be open for questions. So we're getting to the end. Thank you for bearing with me so far. Elon Musk, he's the person pictured on this slide. Why did I pick Elon Musk? He's doing some very innovative things. And I started to think, are we preparing our students for the jobs that someone like Elon is making? One thing that Elon did that many of you probably are aware of, didn't really know his name, he created PayPal. You probably heard of PayPal. He sold PayPal for $3 billion to eBay. Not a bad sale. Beats the lemonade stands. In the end, he used that money to make 3 separate companies. He made one called Tesla. It's an electric car. The fact is, there's a lot of technology behind it. I'm not trying to promote just electric cars. What I'm saying is, there are thousands of jobs within his company that he needs to fill. Our kids graduating from high school and then from college, going into the trades, 2-year colleges, and I think being prepared for these these types of jobs. Because I guess many of you, even in the past year, could say that your job changed, that the company is changing. 5 years ago, you're doing something different now than you did 5 years past. So there's new technologies available. There's a new way to do it. That's how fast things change. Well, if kids are in school with us from 4K all the way through 12th grade, that's 14 years of school. What changes in that amount of time? I think we can agree a lot. Another company he has is SpaceX, private missions to space. Elon said the cost of a rocket, the boosters that get you up there are so expensive, that's why it was too expensive to go up there. So you put a GPS, the rocket lands itself exactly where it started from, which makes it reusable, which means all you're paying for is the fuel. So now you can start considering flights to space are $10,000. Still expensive, mind you. I just had a friend fly back from China, it was $2,500. So you start to think about that. We're not flying across anymore, we can start flying up. But that requires people to do that. The last thing he's doing is a thing called Solar City. Solar panels, not a new concept. Leasing them, not a new concept. But making it affordable, that's kind of a new concept. Obviously in Wisconsin and the Midwest, we're not exactly in the places where solar works so well for us. Now it's actually a pretty good option still, but you know, in Florida as a comparison, or California, they're going to get a little more sun. Imagine charging your car off of your solar panels, getting it off the grid. Again, it's technology. The point isn't about the solar panels, it's about the jobs. I'm going to answer some of your questions verbatim, and then I'm going to show you the print site, and then if you have questions for me. Okay, one of the questions was, will each student be responsible for the same Chromebook all 4 years? The answer is yes. Also, I'm going to answer two questions at once. Someone said, if we're paying for it, why can't we use it during the summer? And by the way, it's not because we're saying the learning should stop in summer. We actually had a lot of feedback from parents saying, you know, I don't know if I want my child on that computer all summer long. It didn't seem like the purpose of things. Then we had some families saying, well, my son or daughter's in summer school, and sure would be nice to extend that. And okay, well, we do have computers available at summer school, they just can't take them home. In the end, we definitely need to audit the devices. Can't tell you how many devices came back at the end of the school year this year when we found out there were some damages, there were some issues, some questions, some missing keys. We want them to be useful from September until June. Those are the primary times that the devices need to be used. And that's what we need to do. So imagine if we have 3,000 or 3,500 devices. We can't audit that during the school year. We need to collect them. But when we do, we tag them with their name, and when they come back, we give them the exact same device back. The one that they use is the one that they use for 4 years. Now mind you, if you're in 7th grade, you're getting them for a couple years. Well, come 9th grade, it'll be a new device. So that's actually good. So that is so that you're not in 10th grade and now getting a new device then and have 2 years then. So let's do the auditing now. So what happens is we are collecting devices at the end of the school year. That is that we can clean them, prepare them, update them with PPE, check and make sure that they're still operational. We'll give you the exact same device back at the beginning of school. When are students getting the devices? That was another question. For this school year, the beginning of the first week of school, like I said, we have 1,200 devices to deploy just for the middle schools alone. We didn't want you feeling like you were in line at Disneyland for an hour and a half when you get a device. That's not a good use of your time. So we waited until the beginning of the school year. The devices will come home. They'll also have a case with them. And if you want the insurance, again, it's up to you, but then they'll be covered too. Another question. Can you print from the Chromebooks? Yes. So we'll have printers stationed in each library media center that the Google Chromebooks can print directly to. They also can print from their teacher computer. So a teacher has a little plug-in that they can put on their computer, and they can find the printer that the teacher has and print that way. So it seems like kind of an interesting way to do it. We're actually printing through the internet. And then some people said, well, can we print at home? The answer is yes. We actually have instructions on our website on how to set that up. computer, the proxy, and then it connects to the printer at your house. So you don't actually install any drivers. You install a little plug-in that goes to the computer in the house. So the thing is, someone asked yesterday, because we had presentations yesterday, so I'm aware, I have 3 kids. They're all going to have these, and they're all printing all over the time. How do we have this many pages to print? It seems like all we're doing is printing. Well, the premise of Google is that you're eventually sharing documents, not printing documents, and that things stay online, not print and then turn it in. It defeats the purpose. So, it says, will internet safety classes be available for students to take? Well, they're starting it right now. They're getting their speech, their initial conversation. They've had that before. But this is another continuation of that, about it's not the use of the devices we're worried about, it's the misuse of the devices. That edge that we can fall off of. So we have filters at school. We have a thing called a Palo Alto filter. It's a firewall filter, which means we block content. We're required by law. There's a thing called CIPA, which is the Child Information Protection Act. It was passed in 1996, and it's our job to make sure that we're enforcing it. We're required to do that. The Chromebooks also have another layer. That other layer is that we have to force Google Safe Search, and then also force Google Safe Image Search. Because you may be aware of the fact that if you turn off Safe Search, you can yield some pretty unfortunate results, right? So unfortunately, we don't want that to happen, and in our control panel, we can force those to stay on to help block content. No, nothing's perfect by discipline. We do a lot to keep things safe, but there is always a way around it. There's always a loophole. In fact, students here with their cell phones can become hotspots, and they don't have to use our network. And by law, I can't block that or tell them to turn it off. The FCC says you can't knock down signals and only use your own. It's the law. Okay, we won't break the law then, but it means that we can't stop all that from happening. What we can do is provide classes on training. This is what's happening. This is what you're doing. This is what you're held accountable for. This is unsafe use. This is safe use. This is how you keep yourself safe online. Don't talk to strangers. Who do you think's on the other end of that chat session or that email? Do you think it's always a 12-year-old girl? Is it always a 12-year-old boy? Maybe not. What are the safe resources? What are the unsafe resources? What do you stay away from? That's where the conversations are starting. We're going to be bringing in Justin Patchen. He is a professor at UW Clare. He is the lead for one of the cyberbullying websites and resources for the nation that is used by, I would say, 2/3 of the districts in the Midwest. Very well known. In fact, the last time I talked to him, he was flying out to Harvard. He was doing a presentation there just before Lady Gaga was performing on stage. Now, I don't know how his presentation relates to Lady Gaga, but I guess he's on that big stage. He's coming here to present to all of our students as well. A person who's an outside resource and the authority as far as we're concerned on cyber safety. Very important to us. Another question was, I've heard concerns about the quality of the Chromebooks. Have experienced issues already. So, no device is indestructible. Maybe you could find one that is. I'm not trying to challenge you, but ultimately, the device has an LCD screen. That means there's liquid all over it. And it can crack, and if it does, the liquid will mix. And just like you mix liquids in chemistry, they aren't going to look the same as they did before when they were all separate. And so what that means is the device is really not useful when the screen doesn't work, because that's your only interface. But we can replace screens, and we found a way to do that. And you can get insurance if you want. And we have ways for students to replace it quickly so we can turn it around right away. And we're going to have extra screens on hand, so it's not 2 weeks before you get the device back. And while there are probably more rugged devices out there, they're also more expensive. We held a couple things at the highest priority when we were choosing our device. That it was cost effective, that the battery life would last, and that it had enough processing power to be useful. Because we've all been on a computer that's slow, like turbo slow, and what do we typically do? We don't use it. Or we maybe have a few thoughts in our mind that aren't so positive about it as we're using it. But we don't want that on the device, which is again why we're saying let's reduce the number of apps. We want to get a device that's useful. Now, ironically, the device is about a 1/2 inch thick when it's closed, The case is about 1.5 inches. But we wanted a case that would be rugged, that would be useful, that's hard, that wouldn't just go, okay, I put it in my backpack and now immediately my screens are broken. So the case is actually very durable. The device itself is a Chromebook. We don't have a $1,500 MacBook Pro. We don't have a $1,500 Ultrabook, which is a very slim and powerful PC version of a Mac. We have a Chromebook. And certainly there are other devices more powerful. But that's no different than a device said, you know, the new Mustang's coming out, and it sure is better than my Camry. So why don't we have a Mustang? Well, okay, there are reasons for that. Maybe it's not good snow. So the questions have been very useful for me to think about what it is people are interested in knowing about. But I realize there are other questions too. So I'm going to quickly show you the parent site, open up the questions, and then, believe it or not, you're going to be able to go. The students will be finishing up about the same time. We try to plan these presentations to be identical, because I know some of you have places to be. So let me just bring up the parent site and go behind the screen. I can't really stand behind it and talk to you, which is a little weird. So anyways, you can see that our site is broken up into tabs. And there's some very obvious tabs and maybe not so obvious ones. I'm going to start with the obvious ones. Chromebook insurance. You're probably thinking of what document is behind that tab. Okay, very clear. And by the way, that same document is available here. Handbook. We have the handbook, the full 11 pages of it, in all its glory. You also have a document here signing that you've reviewed this. I don't have to have you memorize it. I just want you to be aware of what's in there. It's basically saying, don't eat by it. Don't go swimming with it. Okay, obviously. This is to be used for educational purposes. That we will collect it again in school. That we will support it. That you bring it in charge, not you. Preach to the choir here. But your kids will bring in charge each day to school. We will have extra charges at school. We don't want them actually transporting the charger back to school. We want them to stay at home. By the way, another question someone asked, can we buy an extra charger? Yes, you can. They're about $20 on Amazon. So that helps because maybe son or daughter has multiple households they're at, or they travel on weekends, something like that. It's okay to get other chargers, and they're not too expensive. Chromebooks, the basics, World Wide Web communication, finding information, these are all things that can help you if you want to learn about the Chromebook in advance. So remember I talked about October and having the opportunity to do our online training? It's actually called Getting Googly. And what we've done is we have pre and post tests, not because we're trying to test you and find out how smart our parents are about Google. This is for your own information. How much do I know? You may figure out, oh, I got 5 out of 5, I don't need to take this. Done, moving on. And so you actually can step through some of the easier parts of Google into more of the advanced. Just this Monday, 2 days ago, Google rolled out something called Google Classroom. And it's like a learning management system. And it's going to bridge all these tools together. Another tool that's free for our use. Something else that you can learn more about if you'd like to. Another question that came up. Do I have access to my son or daughter's Chromebook and all their stuff on their account? The answer is yes, absolutely. It is your right to know what their login is. If they start deleting their history on the Chromebook, that's a red flag. That means they're trying to hide something. Because what we do right now is we enable the history to stay on. Yes, they can delete it. They can't turn that off. But if they start deleting their history and there's big gaps of time, then you know they don't want mom or dad to see what's on there. It's time to have a conversation. Because again, there are ways to get around this. Even things that are some PG-13 in terms of the rating might be worth having a conversation about. So it's your right. I'm not saying it's your responsibility. It's your right to view that and to ask and to look. And of course, it's your right to know. In the end, this is not what I consider to be like way over your head. If you want to just click through it, you can. Where is this found? If you go to our district website, I don't have that yet. It'll be up tonight. If you go to our district website, there's a thing that says Chromebook One-to-One Initiative. It's right on the front page. And you click on this and you'll find this site for parents. So this is about information. This is about finding the paperwork. And this is about answering some questions. So I tried to answer some of your questions. I realize I don't try to give the information I think will be helpful for the time that you have. Because if I had you here for 3 hours, I know many of you would be finding a cot somewhere. But ultimately, this is what I wanted to present to you right now. So if you want to ask any questions, you can in this format. And if we exhaust those, you can come up later and get them. All I'm going to tell you is this. I know I've mentioned these pieces of paper that are up here already. Some of you have already filled them out. It is the handbook form and the insurance. It's up to you. But either way, if you haven't filled it out, I'm not taking them tonight. It'll be something to send with the child or children on the first day of school. Okay? Any questions now? Yes?
Handing this to a fifth grader, if they completely lose it, are we on the line for the 250?
Yes.
So you would just take the 250, you get another?
Yes, correct. And that is our exact replacement cost, no increase in it.
Are there school books or anything on it? Like my daughter attends an online high school, and all of her books are on the computer. Is that going to be the case here?
We don't have all of them online. That's what happens is, in a perfect world, we would. But what needs to happen is we do curriculum rewrites, and then they get a new textbook. And if the textbook is available online, then we can use it. But that's probably more of an ongoing process, not an immediate. So eventually we will get there, but we don't have all of our textbooks online. So. But it would make sense that our backpacks aren't so heavy and not everybody's Osceola, right? Yes. Thank you. Good question. Any other questions? And I realize you don't have to, some of you are more interested in just having face-to-face. Go ahead.
The child forgets to plug in their Chromebook at the end of the day, and the next thing they're at school is that they're waiting for them to...
Yeah. Make sure the charger stays home. We'll have extra chargers available. We're going to outfit the teachers with some chargers, so that can be charged there. If they're already being used, they can always go to the library and get a loan or two. So send them with the device either way, even if it's dead. Way in the back.
Can we put parent restrictions on at home? I understand the teachers can restrict apps, can we restrict the children on at home from personal?
Sure. You are not able to push your own restrictions as a parent on the device itself, but you technically can restrict, if you have wireless access, you might be able to put those restrictions on your phone, so that there's only a certain level of rating that can get through. But otherwise, the only filtration that would be on there would be the Google Safe Search and Google Safe Image Search in terms of processes. And the apps will be controlled by the parents, by the teachers. So the students won't be able to add anything. It doesn't mean they can't go to websites, but the apps will be one of them, the ones that are approved. So, go ahead.
Back to the printing part, I need to understand that with the printing homework page, this is enabled directly to the teachers.
Right, they can share. So the teachers will be able to view every student's drive. And so the student may have an assignment, instead of printing it off and physically handing it to them, they'll just share it so that the teacher will then be able to see it on their computer. So it's I can't say the whole thing. What I can tell you is that there'll still be some printing. There'll still be paper. And the devices are going to... Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's not that they're trying to say, no, you print everything and you have to charge everything. It's, there should still be opportunities to print right at school too. So students have issues with printing at home. That's not going to change. But hopefully what will change is if you don't have a printer at home, but now we're sharing, then it's less of an issue. You can share more. We'll call it the collaborative use. There's actually a share button on every document. You can pick who you share it to. You can share it to your teacher. You can share it to your group that you're working with, etc. Yeah, good question. I'll step back a little bit to answer that. The device will be useful when it can enhance the learning. Teachers are slowly rewriting their lessons to include the device to be able to use it, but they won't use the device all day long, which means some lessons will be a same way they were. But yes, there will be lessons and assignments that are given and kept just in the cloud and used on the device. Right. Well, and having the ability to view the progress, the work will be organized in one space. It won't be in a locker, it won't be in a backpack. It'll be on the device. So it'll be a nice way to look at a centralized location. And by the way, this plan, the teachers would probably should be, if I said that everything will be on them. But just so you know, that's the possibilities out there. Are there any other questions? Yes?
You guys kind of indicated that going into high school, the kids would be getting a new Chromebook.
Correct.
And so if I have a fifth grader and I'm going, just be paying for 4 years or whatever, you get a new one going in the 4 year, that we start payment schedule to get the new Chromebook?
Yes.
Okay, so every 4 years, I mean, we're basically from now until they graduate, we're paying for
Correct.
that or whatever.
If you're going to be in our program, you will have that fee every year. And you do have the waiver to be out of the program. But yes, that's how it would be. And just so you know, it wouldn't be worth it to think that the device would take you 8 years or, or a few less. We're definitely going to issue a new device. Of course, it'll be more powerful just by the nature of technology. So. Question over here?
Yeah, if my son were to buy another student's Chromebook off the desk, does the insurance cover the other student's Chromebook?
No. Yeah, and so in a non-technical way, if they were to knock something off of another student's, it's a responsibility issue in the same way, but the insurance only covers the one and not multiple. So, which would be like car insurance, kind of covers multiple in the event of an accident. If there's an uninsured motorist, right? If you have an uninsured Chromebook user, we cover that. We don't quite have that built into the policy, but it's a good question. Yes, sir.
Do the Chromebooks support the smarter balance testing?
We do. So they have a thing called kiosk mode. So we think of the kiosk as if I'm on the wall. See a computer there, and anybody can use it. We also have the same option on the smarter balance assessment is something we end up using, which who knows these days. There actually is a little app that we click on, and it freezes the device to only the assessment. Why don't I, great question, thank you for that. And yes, we are covered with that as the case. I can let you all know, I will be here for questions. If you need more questions, come on up.